Hey everyone, Mark Meckler here, President of Convention Estates, and I'm glad to be with you on a Sunday night for the BattleCry. As always, we're going to start with our call to action, and this is a really tough one. And I might sound a little facetious when I say that, but I don't really think it is facetious, because what I want you to do is I want you to talk to a friend about politics, and not just any friend. I want you to talk with a friend that you don't normally talk to about politics. And that doesn't mean I want you to talk to somebody that you know would be a political opponent or a political foe. It just means somebody you don't normally talk to about politics. That might be somebody at church, might be a coworker, might be a family member. I'm not asking you to get in a political fight. That might happen, but that's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to talk about politics because too many people are completely disengaged. And when people are disengaged, we start to lose our country, because what the framers expected of us, what the founders expected of us, is that you and I would be engaged in politics, that we would pay attention, that we would know what was going on in our cities and our counties and our states, and even at the level of the federal government. They expected that you and I would know enough to be informed voters. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. And so I'm going to encourage you this week, and I'd love to hear some stories. Maybe you guys will put them in the comments next week or questions next week of how you did it and how it went. And again, I don't want you to start the rough way. Don't go at somebody who is a leftist that you know is a leftist that you're going to have a big fight with. Just somebody maybe even you think is a line that you've never talked to about politics, and say, you could say something like, man, it's been crazy what's happened in this country since they assassinated Charlie Kirk. And the person might say to you, well, what do you mean? I don't know who Charlie Kirk is. Or what do you mean? I heard about that, but I don't really know anything about it. And that gives you a chance to open up and start to talk about, well, unfortunately on the left in America, the political rhetoric is heating up and it's actually leading to people getting killed. It led to an attempt on the life of President Trump where he was actually shot in the ear. It led to another attempt on the life of President Trump at his golf course, where thank God he wasn't shot. It led to Charlie Kirk being assassinated, and a lot more political violence. And it's coming from the left. And there's all this rhetoric about how we're Nazis and fascist and Hitler and all this stuff. And so crazy people pick up on that and they try to kill conservatives. And that's one way to engage in a conversation like that. And so there's all kinds. Pick any subject that's near and dear to your heart. That's a political subject, something that you know something about, something that you have to share. Not that you're trying to be controversial about, not that you're trying to win an argument about, but somewhere where you might want to educate somebody. And then talk to somebody who you don't normally talk to politics about. This is healthy for our society. We've been told for too long, oh, don't talk politics, don't talk religion. Those are two of the most important things you can talk about if you want to have a meaningful conversation with somebody. So I say talk politics and talk religion and let us know how it goes. I don't want to start this week with crime. I mean, not that I want to start with crime. I'm not a criminal. A lot of people out there are. And one of the things I really want to say about crime that's really important is crime in our society is a choice. In other words, we go to big cities, we see all this crime, we hear about all this crime. Even if you don't live in a big city, you hear about cities like Chicago with its unbelievable murder rates. You hear about cities like New York where the crime was running rampant. You hear about cities like DC where crime was running rampant until President Trump decided to do something about it. And impressively, it's not just Washington, D.C. that he's started to help clean up. He made the choice that there shouldn't be that kind of crime in Washington, D.C., but it's Memphis also. Watch this clip from Memphis, Tennessee.
Part of a plan to help tackle crime in Memphis. We've seen them around the downtown area, often with police officers.
I had 2 trucks stolen, a scooter stolen, been robbed, billfold stolen, knocked out with a hammer. Been knocked out a couple times, so trust me, I'm glad they're here. And I haven't heard any gunshots lately. Usually it sounds like the 4th of July. But it's calmed down quite a bit, so I'm happy.
I was against pretty much everything that was coming towards Memphis. I was against this National Guard, all these different police units, all this military, all this. I was against all this coming to the end, right? And then I seen the numbers after the first week of rounding up. These folks then got 16 convicted murderers off the streets in 1 week. I would be lying if I ain't just read them numbers and say, damn, that's a good thing for Memphis.
Yeah, look, the stats don't lie. you can look at videos like this online and not just see one or two, but see dozens and maybe hundreds out of Memphis, out of Washington, D.C. Crime is a choice. And when the government chooses to crack down on crime, especially in these inner city areas where it's so bad and where people of color are the primary ones suffering from it, and Democrats are doing nothing about it and have done nothing about it for a very long time, when the choice is made to crack down on it, the crime goes away. Who benefits? Honest citizens. Who benefits? Moms, dads, kids, families. I saw videos of people in Memphis saying, hey, first time in 5 years their kids have been able to even play on the streets, like to go out in their front yards and not worry about gunshots, not worried about getting killed in their own front yards. This is the least that we owe our citizens, right? Government is here to secure our God-given rights. One of our God-given rights is the right to live in peace, free from violence, free from crime. And government is supposed to secure that right for us. We're not supposed to have to secure that right by ourselves. That's a power that we give to government. That's why we give the government the power to have police agencies at all different levels of government so that they can secure the peace. And in Democrat cities all across this country, virtually every major Democrat city has become an urban hellscape. I'm not going to say every, I'm going to say virtually every, the vast majority. I'm sure there are exceptions, and somebody's going to point out the exception. But if you go to New York, if you go to Philadelphia, if you go to Boston, if you go to Memphis, you go to all these places. And by the way, Memphis is in a red state. I want to be clear on that. People will say, well, some of the really bad cities are in red states. Yep, that is absolutely true. And they're governed by Democrats and have been for almost ever. San Francisco, governed by Democrats, has been for almost ever, maybe 100 years. I don't know how long. And it's an urban hellscape. And that's a choice. Because President Trump has shown by going into Washington, D.C., by going into Dallas, he's threatening to go into Chicago, that he's going to help clean these places up because it's not fair, it's not right, it's not just for American citizens to live under constant threat of crime. Most people who live in the inner city are not criminals. They don't like crime. They want the same thing as you. They want to be able to have their kids play on the streets. They want to be able to walk to the store. They want to be able to sit on their front porch at night. Who doesn't want those things? Virtually everybody except the criminals. And so when President Trump sends in the National Guard, or anytime a city ups the police presence, crime goes down. When crime goes down, who benefits? Honest, law-abiding citizens benefit. And that's what we should be all about. I mean, there should be no doubt about this. It should not be a difficult thing. It should not be a partisan thing. It's unbelievable to me that we're having an argument about whether we should be able to clean up our cities. And these cities, like, we don't want President Trump. We don't need President Trump. J.B. Pritzker in Illinois. We don't want President Trump in Chicago. We don't want him putting National Guard in Chicago. Clean up your damn city. Protect your people. And God bless President Trump that he's not only willing to do it, but this creates pressure for all these cities to clean themselves up because, bless their hearts, these Democrats can't do it. They won't do it. They've chosen not to do it. And God bless the people who live in those inner cities. They deserve as much protection as anybody anywhere else. Blue city, blue state, red state. They deserve law-abiding citizens to feel safe in their own cities. And we're going to have to do it because crime is a choice. And if we want to let our cities fall apart, they can do that. I don't think it's fair to the people who live in those places. So I think we got to clean them up. I give President Trump great credit for starting this. And I wish everybody else, all these blue state governors, would go along with it and would ask Trump for help and would thank him for his help. It'd be a great cross-aisle thing to do to clean up our cities. Doesn't seem like most of them are going to do it because, frankly, in most of these places, I think they like the crime. I think it gives them control. I think it keeps them in power. And they can always say, hey, we're working on it. We're going to clean it up. More money, give us more power, give us more money, and then we'll clean up the crime. It's a racket. Speaking of rackets, we got to talk about Governor Gavin Newsom out in California. He who believes he should be the next president of the United States. First, he destroyed San Francisco. Then he destroyed California. And now he's coming for you. Now he wants to destroy the whole country. You want to give it an idea of some of the things he would do? One of the important things he would probably do, Governor Gavin Newsom and his apparatus, whatever you want to call it, in California, have given out over 62,000 driver's licenses, not just driver's licenses, commercial driver's licenses. Like people can drive big trucks on our highways, 62,000 illegal aliens. Watch this.
Audit found California had issued 62,000 CDLs to drivers who entered illegally, John, or do not have a permanent legal status as required by the feds. California sanctuary laws prohibit asking applicants their immigration status. Governor Newsom said there's not a problem. Back to you.
Did I hear you right? Did you say 62,000?
That's correct.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a federal audit.
62,000 illegal immigrants who've never been asked about their status. Could be criminal illegal aliens. They're all criminal illegal aliens, by the way, because they all crossed the border illegally. Could have committed crimes in their own countries, could be wanted for murder, rape, mayhem. You have no idea. They're driving commercial big rigs in the United States of America. Wherever you live, they're driving them in your state. In Florida, a few weeks ago, they killed a family of 3 when somebody got a CDL from California, illegal immigrant, picked a U-turn or did a U-turn on a highway, an illegal U-turn, and basically decapitated 3 people in a car. It's happening regularly. You can see it in the news. Some of them, they're same trucking company. There's an Indian trucking company that employs a lot of these folks, or maybe there's also a Pakistani trucking company. There's a lot of folks out there that are taking advantage of our lack of enforcement of our laws. They are employing illegal immigrant drivers, many of whom cannot read English, cannot speak English proficiently. Right now, you've got President Trump trying to crack down on that. But apparently, Governor Newsom thinks this is no problem. Do you think it's no problem that we have illegal immigrants? I mean, first of all, I think it's a problem that we have illegal immigrants. Second of all, it's a problem that we have illegal immigrants taking jobs away from legal U.S. citizens. Thirdly, we have illegal immigrants who can't even read road signs, can't possibly understand our traffic laws, driving big rigs in our cities and in our counties and all across our country. And finally, they're killing people. Apparently, Governor Gavin Newsom does not think this is a problem. Keep an eye on this because it's only going to get worse. Speaking of things that are even worse, how about the New York gubernatorial race? New York is on the precipice of electing a guy who is an Islamist, pro-Hamas, refuses to condemn Hamas keeping their arms, who has called for globalizing the Intifada. And let's just be clear what that means. Globalize the Intifada means kill the Jews. So he's approved of this, who says he would approve of doing away with private property, who says he wants government grocery stores. Does that sound Marxist, Stalin-esque to anybody? Soviet Union-ish to anybody? I mean, this guy is full-on Islamist, communist, who looks like he's going to be the governor of New York. Zoran Mamdani. Unbelievable. By the way, he's also a citizen of Uganda, just in case you're wondering. I think this idea of dual citizenship, that's got to go. He's a citizen of Uganda, and which is a place, by the way, I want to be really clear, where they actually throw gays in prison and kill gays. And he's Mr. Pro-LGBT alphabet soup. He's posing with cross-dressers, with trans perverts who would be killed in Uganda. He's also posing for pictures with the president of Uganda. This is a very bad guy. But he does have, I got to say, just one of the most impressive resumes ever to be the mayor of the financial center of the world. Because let me tell you about the jobs he's held. Oh, wait, he hasn't held any jobs. I don't think he's ever had a real job. He was a failed rapper. That's, I guess, maybe a career choice. He's a trust fund baby. His parents are wealthy college professors. And then his next job was he got elected to the legislature in New York. Yeah, he got elected. So I guess you could say that's a job. Except he missed over 80% of the votes, the most absent legislator in the New York legislature. So even if you call that a job, and by the way, during his tenure, he voted himself the largest raise in the history of the state legislature, making himself and the other legislators in New York the highest paid legislators in the country, while not going to work without any other job or life experience. This guy might be the mayor of New York. Now, there was just a mayoral debate this week, the last mayoral debate. The debate was between Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa, who is the Republican, Andy Cuomo as the independent because he got his butt kicked by Zoran Mamdani in the primary. And it was a slap fest. I mean, it was literally just a slap fight going back and forth and back and forth. And I would say Mamdani got the worst of it. Is it going to change the outcome of the election? Look, Curtis Sliwa is taking like 15% of the vote. If that vote doesn't go to Andrew Cuomo, then absolutely Mamdani wins. If Sliwa drops out of the race, which he says he's not going to, it doesn't look like he's going to, he's going to be the spoiler, and he is going to guarantee that Mamdani is the next mayor of New York City. But I have to say, Andrew Cuomo is not doing himself any favors. He's not a great candidate. He's been kind of like a walking corpse in this candidate. He hasn't done all the hard political work, honestly, that it takes to become mayor of New York. Not out knocking on doors, not doing tons of appearances. It's been a very weak and pathetic campaign. I actually think he's kind of a weak and pathetic guy. But I think I'm of a mixed mind, but I think I would rather have a weak and pathetic liberal Democrat as mayor of New York than as Islamist, pro-Hamas, anti-capitalist, anti-American radical. And that's what Zoran Mamdani is. Curtis Sliwa, I think he'd be the best mayor of all three of them. He's a true New Yorker, loves New York, conservative guy, law and order guy. He's got no chance. He's got absolutely no chance. Here's an interesting stat. 62% of foreign-born voters in New York City are voting Zoran Mamdani. Anybody surprised by that? This is what happens when you import a population that does not share American values and you allow them into the United States. They don't assimilate. They don't share our values. They don't believe in the things that made America great. They're going to vote for guys like Zoran Mamdani. And actually, the majority of American-born citizens, native-born citizens, support Cuomo. A smaller portion support Curtis Sliwa. But this is a problem. When we have heavy immigration, and we've had massive historic immigration over the last 20 years, when you have that kind of immigration and you don't have assimilation, and frankly, that kind of immigration prevents assimilation, then you're going to get guys like Zoran Mamdani elected to be the mayor of the financial center of the entire world. It's going to be a really interesting experiment. If he wins, New Yorkers are going to get what H.L. Mencken said about the American voter, is that American voters get what they want, good and hard. I think that's what's going to happen in New York City. It looks like Mamdani is going to be the mayor. He's going to try to give them free buses and free childcare. And he's running a campaign. I'm cribbing from Ben Shapiro here, so forgive me, but he's running a campaign that is like an 8th grade student government campaign. Everybody gets free candy and free sodas and unlimited recess and 2 lunches and no homework. Now, of course, the student body president can't give any of those things. And you've got Mamdani saying that he's going to raise statewide taxes. He might forget that the mayor of New York isn't in the legislature, isn't the governor, has no say over statewide taxes, but he says he's going to get that done somehow. Anyway, this is an absolute disaster for New York. It's frankly a disaster for America. It shows the tail end of the worst kinds of policies. So it's going to be an experiment. We're going to get to watch it, and I think we probably won't be going to New York anytime soon. Here's a piece of news that I think is a good piece of news that isn't getting much coverage. And one of my favorite guys in the federal government right now is Lee Zeldin. Lee Zeldin is the administrator of the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. He's doing an absolutely fantastic job. Lee Zeldin is cutting that agency down to size. He's laying off people that the agency doesn't need. He's cutting programs the agency doesn't need. He says his mandate is clean air and water and land, but also taking into account the United States economy. And that's what the EPA should do if the EPA even exists. By the way, I don't think the EPA should exist. I don't think it's constitutionally permissible. I think the permission has been invented by the courts. Every state has their equivalent of the EPA, and we don't need one at the federal level. But as long as it's there, I love having a guy like Zeldin there. He says by the end of the year, they will cut more regulations than have been cut in the last 40 years through all administrations combined. And I think that's really incredible. They are carrying out the mandate post-Chevron. The Chevron decision by the Supreme Court overturning the Chevron doctrine now says that these agencies can't pretend that they have regulatory authority. Prior to the Chevron doctrine, if a law didn't say an agency could do something, then the agency said they could do that thing. Post Chevron, the law has to say what the agency's authority is. And that's really limited their authority. That's cutting down a lot of what the EPA can and should be doing. And Lee Zeldin is making that happen. So I have to say to Administrator Zeldin, fantastic job. And I'm so glad you're there. And he's there, if you think about it, in the middle of a government shutdown. Anybody notice? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody notice the government shutdown? I haven't noticed the government shutdown. I'm traveling. I travel a lot. I've been on the road a lot this week. I didn't notice anything at airports. I haven't noticed anything on the roads. I haven't noticed the government is shut down. And that's true for most American people. If this was 10 or 15 years ago, we were talking about a government shutdown, it'd be front page news all day, all the time, every news show, people be freaking out. We've seen this. We know not much changes. Now, I want to be fair and I want to be understanding. There are federal employees that are being hurt by this, who are furloughed, who are not receiving their paychecks. It's very difficult on them. And I don't like that. I think that really sucks. I don't think we should shut down our government. I mean, I think there are agencies and programs we should shut down permanently, but this kind of silly childish shutdown, I think, is ridiculous. And the question is, who is it on? Whose fault is it? The Democrats basically say they're enjoying it. And they say, and they're saying this out loud, that the pain and suffering in the American people gives them leverage. Does that seem appropriate to you? That doesn't seem appropriate to me. I don't want politicians who say my pain and suffering or your pain and suffering gives them negotiating leverage. They're creating the pain and suffering. Whatever pain and suffering exists is 100% on the Democrats. Let me fill you in on the procedure right now. What the Republicans have proposed is what's called a CR, a continuing resolution. And this is what's called a clean CR, a clean continuing resolution, meaning no changes from the status quo. Just keep paying your bills, exactly like you've been paying your bills. And if we want to negotiate some other stuff afterwards, maybe we will. But let's just keep the government open and keep paying the bills. And that's according to the big, beautiful bill that was passed because President Trump had a mandate. He had the majority. That bill got passed. And now Democrats are saying, no, we don't like the big, beautiful bill. We want to spend a lot more money. We want to spend money on transgender bat surgery in Ecuador or something crazy like that. There are a bunch of crazy things that they're trying to restore funding to. One of them, by the way, is the public broadcast service. PBS, they want to restore PBS funding. That's what they're arguing about. But the deal is, all they have to accept is, hey, let's just keep paying our bills the way they are. And if we keep paying them the way they are right now, everybody will get paid. Military will get paid. Doctors will get paid. Everybody will get paid. We could talk about the other stuff later. That's what the Republicans are offering. That's what the Republicans already passed through the House. That's what the Republicans want to do in the Senate. It's the Democrats in the Senate exercising the filibuster are preventing us from actually getting to the point where we can pass the continuing resolution and reopen the government. So if you look at the government and you think it should be open, I actually think it should be open. These are ridiculous sideshows. It's 100% all on the Democrats. And if you're like me and you're not noticing, I get it. You're not noticing. You're not employed by the government. You're not on government benefits. You're not having a problem. All right, last week in COS, I was on the road. I was on the road a lot. I went to Montana, Billings, Bozeman, Laurel, went to Wyoming, to Sheridan, Wyoming. It was fantastic. Like massive crowds in the town halls. I was super excited about all the people I saw in the town halls. I saw a bunch of grassroots that I hadn't seen in a while. It was great to hang out with them. I got to travel with Rick Green. And when I get to travel with Rick Green, it's always, shall we say, an adventure. Now, last time we went to Montana and Wyoming, we actually ran out of gas. I know, it's embarrassing. It's humiliating. A couple of dumb city slickers running out of gas in the middle of nowhere. This one we called the No Gas Tour because, I don't know, it just sounded bad. That sounds bad. And it was the No Gas Tour, or the No Running Out of Gas Tour, I should say, because we didn't run out. Thanks to my trusty assistant and the person who keeps me on time and going where I need to go, Michelle. She had literally in my calendar, it seemed like it was every 5 minutes, fill the car with gas. Thank you, Michelle. We remembered because of you. We did get lost a couple of times. I admit that. We couldn't find our hotel once. I admit that. Because we're just having a great time out there. We stopped, by the way, at a Cracker Barrel. That was super interesting. In Billings, Montana, we stopped at a Cracker Barrel. Now, I couldn't remember whether we're allowed to go into Cracker Barrel anymore. If you may recall, Cracker Barrel went woke. They were going to redesign everything so it looked like sort of, I don't know what you call it, a Manhattanites version of a country cafe. They were going to take all the cool stuff out of it. They were redo the decor, and people went crazy. Thank God you did, I did, wrote to their CEO, just buried them in social media, and they backed down, apparently. I don't know. Did the CEO get fired? I haven't heard. She should have been fired. Anybody who was involved in this should have been fired. So we got to this Cracker Barrel. I felt a little weird about going in. Not sure if I should still support him. Went in, and we were there literally from early morning until early afternoon. We had breakfast, lunch, snacks, a lot of coffee. And I enjoyed it. The vibe was great. The food was good. I had eggs and grits, and it was all fantastic. Our waitress was great. They rate their waitresses based on the level of training they have. She was a 3-star waitress. I saw the coolest thing. She threw a straw across the table, and it landed right next to my cup. I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if she's a ninja waitress, but it worked. And I loved her. I loved the place. It was great. So I think I might be a Cracker Barrel fan again. We'll have to decide. Next week, I'm headed off to Ohio for some meetings and just to meet with hopefully some legislators, some donors, some grassroots. We'll see what happens. We don't have all the plans in place yet. This is normal for me, by the way. Getting ready to travel. I don't even know where I'm going or what I'm doing. That's a normal thing for me. Let's switch to Q&A right now. Also, don't forget the call to action. I'll remind you one more time. Talk to a friend that you don't normally talk to about politics. It's a good thing to do. Also, don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, whatever you do to make sure that you beat the algorithm and actually get notices about the BattleCry and about all things Convention of States. To get more news delivered straight to your inbox, a bunch of the BattleCry summaries, go to conventionofstates.com/BattleCry list. Sign up for our email so that you can be on that BattleCry list. All right, I've got a couple of questions here. These questions come in through conventionofstates.com/ask Mark. That's where we get our questions. So don't forget to do that if you want to ask a question. Annie P says neither party's going to budge on this bill/government shutdown. So what happens after a month? Will this just continue on and on for months, or do they eventually just stop the bill and start over? Yeah, Annie, I'm not as pessimistic as you are on that one. It's not going to go on and on for months. Eventually, I think the Democrats are going to capitulate. They're losing this one in the polls. As it gets a little bit more painful, they're going to lose it worse in the polls. The party that says we're ready to reopen the government always wins these fights. And right now, Republicans are saying, we already passed the bill through the House. We're ready to reopen the government. Trump is saying we're ready to reopen the government. So I think the pressure is going to be on. We need to get 5 more Democrats to flip. I actually think that's going to happen. So that's my prediction. It'll take a couple more weeks, and then we'll see the government restart. Francesca Norton says there are churches that refuse to speak of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Reason is that it's political. What do you think about this, Mark? My answer is I think that's disgusting and cowardly. And the Lord hates cowardice. Yeah, I think that's terrible. Charlie Kirk is a martyr. Charlie Kirk, he died because he went out every day and spoke publicly and professed his faith boldly. Charlie was asked a couple weeks before his death, how do you want to be remembered? And he said, I want to be remembered as a man who was courageous in his faith. He will be. You are, Charlie. That is how you're remembered. And I think any church that refuses to recognize a man that was martyred for speaking his faith isn't true to Christian doctrine. They're not being true to their mission to spread the gospel. Charlie was a missionary spreading the gospel, and he was killed for that. And he is right now, at this point in American history, the most famous man who was spreading the gospel in America, certainly the most famous who was killed for it. And it's, to me, it's just unforgivable. The Lord will forgive it. But to me, it's unfathomable that a pastor wouldn't speak about that in his church. They should. And if you're at a church like that and your pastor won't do it, I'd probably find a new church. That's my opinion. All right. JB says Congress calls the convention and sets the start date, but who sets the end date, if any? Would you prefer a limited duration or an indefinite duration convention? And if why, if limited duration, how long and how why? That is correct that the convention itself will set the duration, and I don't think it needs a limited duration. In other words, I think they're going to work until they get the amendments that they want and those that they believe they can get out of that convention. And I think they'll end the convention. And I'm not worried about that because most of the people who are going to be at convention are going to be legislators. Most legislatures go between 60 and 120 days per legislative session. Unfortunately, the big some of the worst states go year round, California, New York, places like that. But most states, 90 to 120 days. I figure that's about how long a convention of states will go. And so, no, I'm not worried about it. I'm happy to have it open end. I want them to do whatever they got to do, and however long it takes them, I want them to be wise and considered about it. I don't want them to rush through it. I don't want them to be forced through it. So I'm perfectly fine with that they decide their own duration. And I think the own duration will be done when we're done. That's how the 1787 convention worked, and that's how I think it should work. All right, don't forget, this is the Battle Cry. This is your call to action. Go talk to a friend about politics. And don't forget again to subscribe, ring the notification bell, do everything you can to beat the algorithm. And we will see you next week here, Sunday night on the Battle Cry.